What's up, everybody? This week's episode of the 90s podcast, it talks about one of the grittiest movies in UK movie history. As such, it talks about drug abuse, underage sexual activity, death, violence, overdose, and everything gritty in between. Because of this, we're marking this week's episode as explicit, and it is not suitable for younger listeners. So if you are an adult who plays this to your child regularly on a weekly basis, don't worry, we're not going to think anything less of you. You don't need to play them this week's episode. But listener discretion is advised. What's up, everybody? This week I'm joined by Sarah as we sit down to talk about one of the greatest adaptations of a book in movie history, 1996's Trainspotting. That and a whole lot more is to come on this week's episode of the 90s podcast. Welcome to the show. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the 90s podcast right here on the Because of Me Network. Hope you're doing well today. And today I'm joined once again by Sarah. Sarah, how are you?
I am well. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. It has been a solid couple of weeks.
Uh-huh.
Actually, it's been a solid week.
Uh-huh.
It's been a solid couple of hours.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. The joys of recording these in advance.
That's okay, though. It's for a reason. But yes, we batch record when need be.
Yeah.
So
I like to be about 5-6 weeks ahead.
I second that.
Yes. This season is going to be the death of me when it comes to getting these things up 5 or 6 weeks ahead, but I've got a good reason.
Yeah?
Yeah, my research time is affected by my ADD.
Ah.
Going back to my ADD again. Oh, my word.
All roads lead back.
All roads lead back to squirreldom, let me tell you. But you doing all right? You had a good week?
Yes, I've had a solid, good couple hours since we talked last time.
Good.
Got some work done. Yeah.
Good. And you work hard, and I appreciate the time you take out of your day to come here and talk to me, talk with me, talk at me. So we are here for the long haul. Now, as mentioned in the preview, yes, this is an explicit episode. This is your last warning. If you have any children's listening, they might want to skip this week. We're talking about an R-rated movie.
Folks gonna have to get real cool about a lot of shit real quickly.
Right? I'm not even bleeping that out, see?
No, see, right?
This is not an episode for children, so be warned, okay? Not because we've done R-rated movies before where we've, we've done it in a PG way, but the subject matter, there's no way we can do this one. Mm-mm. So it was the same thing when we did the book back in season 3.
Yeah.
There's no way we could have done this without being a little explicit interaction. So thank you for watching. If you're a youngster, at this point you absolve us from all blame by listening to this. This is on everybody else.
I do believe the point has been made, darling.
Has been beaten into the ground yet.
Yes.
So what are we talking about today?
We are talking about the 1996 movie Trainspotting, which is an adaptation from the Irvine Welsh book of the same name.
Yes. Trainspotting, probably one of my favorite movies of all time.
Yes.
And definitely my favorite British-made movie of all time.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not saying much because around this time, British movies basically consisted of Bond films
right?
And the occasional comedy drama like Four Weddings and a Funeral.
Right.
And, this was big. This is a pretty big deal. It's a black comedy drama.
Screenplay was written by John Hodge.
Directed by Danny Boyle.
Right.
And produced by Andrew MacDonald, with the kind of the holy trinity of Scottish filmmaking.
Well, there you go.
Now, you might not know them by name, but you definitely know some of the work that they've done. For example, they were the people that did The Beach.
Okay.
Yeah, which we'll get, more on that later, because that does actually tie into
Ready?
To future plans when it comes to Trainspotting. It was produced by Channel 4 Films, Figment Films, and Noel Gay Motion Picture Company. So a lot of people had a lot of fingers in a lot of pies for this.
It was released in February of 1996. It made a cool US $72 million at the box office, but that was a profit of negative $69 million.
No, that's approximately $69 million.
Oh, that's approximate. Y'all.
That's the approximate sign.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
The approximate sign.
Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, please comment on the thing what an approximate sign is to you.
Okay, there's no way that this movie. There's no way there's no way that Channel 4 was giving up 180. This isn't a $200 million movie.
I didn't say it made sense. I'm saying that no, there's no such thing as an approximate sign. It does not exist on the keyboard.
How do you think I got it in here?
Y'all, we about to be doing host. So
she's taking her earrings off. Okay.
Oh, Lord help me, Jesus. I'm going to start singing Kumbaya here in a minute because that's not trademarked. Okay.
But going off of that, it made $69 million. It made $72 million at the box office. Their total profit is $69 million with a critical rating of 8.8 out of 10 or 88%. Do you think that is a fair number?
Yes.
Okay. And we'll get to why that is a fair number here in a few minutes. Yeah, it's been one of those days, yo. It's been one of those days. So,
let's talk pre-production. The Trainspotting novel was written in 1993, and like we talked about that earlier, and it was by Scottish author Irvine Welsh. Now, again, this is one of those novels that if you are not familiar with Scottish dialect, you're going to die trying to read it.
Yeah, this is basically is a culmination of a bunch of short stories he wrote loosely based around the same characters and universe. So it's not a normal coherent structure, but it's just these are the people we're talking about, and they're intertwined in their lives and so on and so forth. So there's no structure to it. There's no beginning, middle, and end. Right. But it does have a natural beginning and a natural end point, if that makes sense.
Right.
The book is set
in the 80s.
In the mid to late 80s, judging by the fashion that they talk about, the politics that they talk about, the socio-political, the drug use in Edinburgh at the time.
Right.
Because there was a heroin epidemic in Edinburgh in the late 80s, which led to HIV epidemic in the 80s in Edinburgh.
Right.
So, in December 1993, producer Andrew McDonald was on a flight, and he read the book, and he was convinced that he could make a movie out of it. Okay.
Well, and then he passed that on to Danny Boyle and John Hodge, who the three of them together had just finished working on Shallow Grave.
Shallow Grave is an excellent movie.
Love that movie. It has Ewan McGregor, and it also has Christopher Eccleston, who is... he's my favorite doctor.
He never scared me in anything that he ever did except that movie.
Yeah.
Because he wasn't a psychopath with guns and knives and yelling. Right. He was very, very quiet, lost his mind, and scared me. Yeah. We forgot to mention, by the way, that this wasn't the first. This film is not the first attempt to adapt Trainspotting to a larger audience. Not long after the book was released, the Edinburgh Fringe Festival had performances of a stage version of Trainspotting with local actors, and apparently went down really, really well with Irvine Welsh.
Huh, nifty.
So Danny Boyle was impressed with the novel so much that he wrote a letter directly to Irvine Welsh. He stated that he would give the film a structure, and that himself and Danny Boyle were the two most important Scottish people since Kenny Dalglish and Alex Ferguson.
Oh, Jesus.
Two legendary soccer managers in England at the time.
Yeah.
But joking aside, Irvine Welsh was impressed with their enthusiasm for the project and the fact that they wanted to make a movie that wasn't a facade piece. Because a lot of this stuff in the books,
right,
you could turn into, the next Reefer Madness.
Right. Right.
So he didn't want it to be an art film. He wanted it to be as gritty and as real as when he wrote the stories.
Right. All right. Hodge, Boyle, and MacDonald spent many hours working on the script and the story, deciding on which parts of the books could be used, which characters could be used, substituted, and omitted, because there's a large cast of characters in the book. And so some had to be, as with any book, or movie adaptation of a book, sometimes things are consolidated and, whatnot.
Yes, so for example, right, one of the main characters, Tommy, a lot of his story and elements, Tommy's story in the book, but there's also two characters called Second Prize and Maddie, who their stories were kind of intertwined with Tommy and Begbie, so to speak. So, so Tommy had his own story. But the first draft was completed in December of 1994, and not long after that, they managed to get funding from Channel 4 to do that. Channel 4 was into that kind of thing at the time, because Channel 4 was the commercial arm of the BBC at that point, if that makes sense. So they had a lot of their funding from the BBC, but through commercialism at the same time.
Right.
And it's an independent channel, but a lot of the BBC stuff used to run on Channel 4 and vice versa. If something got popular on Channel 4 in the UK, it would go to the BBC eventually.
Right. Well, so after they finished writing and casting and finding locations, the cast was drawn up.
So Ewan McGregor was cast. He was the first one cast, and that was due to him working with Shallow Grave, and the fact that it was felt that McGregor could pull off the style of deception possible for someone who's doing repulsive stuff, but with the charm that makes you feel ambiguous about what they're doing. So kind of think of an anti-hero with no conscience, but an explanation for everything that makes sense.
Right.
He doesn't do anything out of malice, but he doesn't do anything. Okay, let me rephrase that, because he does a lot of stuff out of malice, but he doesn't. It's nothing's personal.
Right. It's not to hurt other people. It's just to better himself.
Yeah.
So
he'll step on you for a penny.
Right. Owen Bremner, who plays Renton in the stage play, was cast to play Spud and felt obligated to take the part as the characters were a part of his heritage. Yes. So Johnny Lee Miller, who would go on to marry
Angelina Jolie.
Yeah, very good. Was chosen due to his role in Hackers,
where he met her.
Yes. They showed his audition doing a Sean Connery accent due to Sick Boy's love of Connery in the novel. Yeah.
Now there's a twist with one of the characters in the film and in the book, and the twist is the age of the character. So they went with a completely unknown to play Diane, because they didn't want to get someone in who was the age bracket of the character who was known, because then the secret would be out and there'd be no plot twist at that point. So what they did is they went to clubs, pubs, hairdressers, boutiques, anywhere you could find young women, and they ended up asking people on the street, inclusive of do you want to audition for this part? In the end, they settled on a 19-year-old Kelly MacDonald. This would launch her acting career, because she would later become Brave and star as the young woman in Nanny McPhee. She also married Dougie from Travis.
I thought she was younger than that.
Not at the time. The character's younger, but the actress wasn't.
Huh. I thought.
The actress was the right age to do everything. Because you could pick a 19-year-old and say that they are not 19.
Right. Okay. For some reason, I thought that the actress was the same age as the. Okay.
No, they just didn't want to get somebody the same age as the character, because that would give away the.
All right.
That'd give the game away.
Totally.
And we'll get to what that game is when we talk about the plot here in a few minutes.
The only role that was hard to cast was Begbie. Originally, Christopher Eccleston was approached due to his work on Shallow Grave, and Boyle's imagination of how Begbie would look. I can't imagine. First off, Christopher Eccleston's about 1.5 feet too tall to play Begbie.
Right.
Okay, so for those
and
who...
he's English, too.
Yes.
That's the other thing.
Well, yeah, but he's Mancunian, so it's doable.
But Begbie's complete Edinburgh, so he'd have to do an accent.
I think he could.
Well,
I think he could.
Oh,
if he was London, if he was a Londoner, no. But he yeah. I think.
Well, remember, he didn't do an American accent in Gone in 60 Seconds because his American accent was awful, so they had him do his.
Well,
his
yeah,
English
but that
accent.
doesn't mean that he can't do a Scottish accent.
No, I'm just saying the accents weren't his strongest suit.
Right, but and then again, though, he was half taller than, because see, the whole point, Begbie in the books, and as was accurately portrayed in the movie, was a tiny little thing, but he would jack you up.
Oh yeah. So they went with Bobby Carlyle instead.
Right. Carlyle was initially hesitant to play Begbie and believed himself to be too short. However, he was convinced, as Boyle stated, that short psychos are better.
Yeah, in an interview in Neon magazine, Bobby Carlyle said, "I've met loads of Begbies in my time. Wandering around Glasgow on a Saturday night and you got a good chance of running into a Begbie." Mm-hmm. So, I mean, the Begbie character.
Yes.
One of my favorite in all of cinemas for the wrong reason. Because he's just an utter psychopath.
Oh, yeah.
Everything sets him off. Mm-hmm. You chew too loud, you chew too soft. It's just...
He smacks around people to smack around people.
Yes, he's a horrible, horrible human, but a wonderful cinematic character.
Yes.
Because you're not going to get him on a mainstream movie. Or even in a mainstream novel. And that's the thing about this movie and the book that it was written off of. It was... it's counterculture. The whole thing was. So let's look at the whole cast real quick, and then we'll jump onto the plot real quick. So we had Ewan McGregor playing Mark Renton, also the narrator as Mark Renton,
right?
Also known as Rents or Renton. You had John Lee Miller as Simon Sickball Williamson.
Yes.
Ewan Bremner as Daniel Spud Murphy, and Bobby Carlyle as Francis Franco Begbie.
Supporting cast was Kevin McKidd as Thomas Tommy McKenzie. Kelly MacDonald played Diane Colson. Peter
Milan
played Mother Superior, Johnny Swanee.
He was another one. He was another call over from Shallow Grave, but also he played in the Harry Potter universe.
Yeah, who was he in Potter?
He was in the seventh movie. One of the Death Eaters at the very beginning of the movie.
Oh, okay, all right. Then you've got Pauline Lynch, who played Lizzie, Susan Vidler, who played Allison, Shirley Henderson, who played Gail.
Is another Harry Potter. For a point, who did she play?
I don't remember.
Moaning Myrtle.
Oh, that's right.
And of course, Kelly MacDonald is another Harry Potter person. She played Ravenclaw.
Yes, that's right. Yes, the ghost of the Grey Lady.
Yes.
Okay, so Stuart McQuarrie, my apologies,
yes.
Played Gavin Temperley and the American Tourist. Some people had to do dual duty.
Yes. Well, I think the cast size was perfect.
Right.
When you consider there is cameos from Irving Welsh himself, who plays Mikey Forrester. Dale Winton, legendary British game show host, shows up. And then the Allen brothers play Andreas, who is the hotel owner at the end of the movie, and Keith Allen, whose daughter made music. He played Hugo the drug dealer, reprising his role from Shallow Grave. So this is kind of...
So you're talking about Lily Allen's dad?
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. He this is unofficially in the Shallow Grave is unofficially in the Irving Welsh universe because he used the character in Shallow Grave. Hugo the drug dealer dies, and that's where the titular Shallow Grave came from, and blah blah blah. And I got to review that movie. It's a fantastic movie, but he plays the same character in this movie.
Oh, because this one happened beforehand. Okay.
Yes.
All right. So we are going to go through the plot. We're going to alternate a little bit, so that way we can keep it spicy.
Yes.
So,
I got the plot from IMDb.
Yes.
So
yes,
you can check it out there.
John's going to start, and we're going to alternate. So hit it, homie.
Yeah, sure. So the film starts with Renton and Spud running down Princess Street, pursued by security guards. While they're doing that, the voiceover of Renton does the infamous and the famous "Choose Life" speech. Choose life. Choose a fucking big television. And it's one of cinema's greatest opening monologues.
Right.
All to the tune of "Lust for Life" in the background. He basically says, why is he choosing life? He's chosen to live life as a heroin addict. Renton's close circle is football enthusiasts, grounds of the abnormal con artist Sick Boy, clean-cut Tommy, simple-minded and good-natured Spud, and the violent sociopath Begbie. Sick Boy, Spud, and Renton are all heroin addicts and spend their time shooting up at the flat of their drug dealer, Mother Superior, Johnny Swan.
After awaking from a heroin-induced state, Renton decides to quit heroin. He's done. He runs down a laundry list of supplies he'll need and locks himself in a cruddy flat. It's so nasty. Boarding up the door so he can't leave easily. Realizing he needs one last high, he leaves the flat and buys opium rectal suppositories from Michael Forrester.
Now, let me stop you right there because there is a bit that is missing right here. One of the most famous scene in the movie. The worst toilet in Scotland.
That's why when you said cruddy, I was like, I mean, okay, think everything you've heard of CBGBs and just multiply that, but bleh.
Yeah, I'm not gonna go into it because last week we didn't go into stuff that made me sick, so
yes.
we'll keep going.
Okay, thank you. So he gets the rectal suppositories from Mikey Forster. He hooks up with his friends sober, and he feels that he's missing something. He later goes with friends to a club, finds that his sex drive has returned, and eventually leaves with a young woman named Diane. After the bow chicka wow wow, Diane refuses to let him sleep in her room, and he spends the night on a sofa in the hallway of the flat. In the morning, he realizes that Diane is a 15-year-old schoolgirl and that her flatmates are actually her parents. Horrified, Renton tries to shake the incident, but is forced to remain in touch after Diane blackmails him.
So Renton basically fell into the "she told me she was 17" officer trap.
Yeah,
because in the UK, for all our non-UK listeners, the age of consent is 16. So that's why the phrase "she told me she was 17" officer comes from. Before all that happened, because this is a little out of whack. Because see, the movie isn't got a linear plot either.
No, it's very.
So there's a couple of things that have happened before
we
get to this point. For example, Renton steals Tommy and Lizzie's intimate tape and returns it to the video store by mistake. And Begbie throws a pint glass off a balcony window and causes a pub brawl.
Yes.
Which is one of my favorite,
Yes.
He's just staring at me. And then he throws... And it's one of those chunky pint glasses, too. You know the ones I'm talking about with the handle?
Yeah, the big, thick bottom. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So Tommy's been dumped by Lizzie by his girlfriend after a chain of events initiated by Renton. Renton stolen Tommy and Lizzie's personal sex tapes, hiding it under the covers of a football video. Lizzie angrily believed that Tommy returned a tape to the video store. Spud, Renton, and Sick Boy decide to start using heroin again, and a broken-hearted Tommy begins using as well, despite Renton's reluctance to get him started. One day, the group's heroin-induced stupor at Swanee's flat is violently interrupted when Allison, their friend and fellow addict, discovers that her infant daughter has died from neglect. They're all horrified and grief-stricken, especially Sick Boy, because it's implied that he's Baby Dawn's father. In the book, it confirms that he's the father, but in the movie, it leaves it ambiguous.
Yeah, that's a hard scene to watch.
Yes.
So Renton narrates that the infant's death prompts Sick Boy to become even more self-destructive. Sick Boy, Renton, and Spud are later caught stealing from a bookshop and are pursued by security guards. Only Renton and Spud are caught, as depicted in the opening scene of the film. That's where they're running and they choose life and whatnot. Sick Boy had slightly hidden and was not arrested. Due to prior convictions, Spud goes to prison, but Renton avoids punishment by entering a drug intervention program where he is given methadone. Despite support from his family, Renton is constantly depressed and bored with life and escapes to Swanee's flat where he nearly dies of an overdose. And that is one hell of a piece of cinema.
Yes.
Because of the leftover traces of methadone with an injection of heroin, he hallucinates that he is sunken into the red carpet at Swanee's until an ER nurse gives him an injection and he recovers. Renton's parents take him home and lock him in his old bedroom so he can beat the addiction cold turkey. Yeah, now there's a bit that's missing. Spud's mother shows up at the pub that they're celebrating Renton getting free at and basically cusses everyone out, to which Begbie threatens to beat her up. Yeah. Because Begbie's Begbie. Right. Also, while they're using again, they basically almost kill an American tourist who's there for the Edinburgh Film Festival. Once again, Begbie being Begbie. And one of my favorite scenes is the overdose scene. Right. Because of the innuendo that is used all the time. Like, can I put this on my credit? Right. As he's dying in the carpet, would you like me to call you a taxi, sir? Yeah. And in fact, the joke was that they showed an ambulance speeding by, but they actually put him in the back of a cab and sent him to the hospital. Where the cab driver just dumps him out in front of the ER and leaves. Right. So, Renton lies in his bed and goes through severe withdrawal symptoms. He hallucinates Diane singing on the bed, representing his illicit intercourse with her, his friends giving him advice, and Baby Dawn crawling on the ceiling. Yeah, it's hard to watch. The heroin withdrawal is intercut with a bizarre imagined TV game show in which host Dale Winton asks Renton's parents questions about HIV. Renton is finally aroused from his nightmares and hallucination by his parents who tell him he needs to get tested. And despite years of sharing syringes with other addicts, Renton tests negative. So, though clean of heroin, Renton is nevertheless bored and depressed, feeling that his life has no purpose. He visits Tommy in his now dark, filthy flat. Tommy is now a full-on heroin addict and is HIV positive. On Diane's advice, Renton moves to London and starts a job as a property letting agent. He begins to enjoy his new life of sobriety and saves up money on the side while corresponding with Diane. His happiness is, again, short-lived, however.
Yeah, that's because Begbie commits an armed robbery with a replica, by the way. The indignancy of the thing I love about that is Begbie goes down to London and seeking a place to hide from the police because of an armed robbery. Mm-hmm. And Begbie's indignant. He's like, how could it be armed robbery with a replica?
Right?
Sick boy, who sees himself as a well-connected pimp and drug pusher, also shows up at Renton's doorstep. Renton's friends make his life miserable, stealing from him, sharing his bed, trashing his apartment, and even selling his rented television. Sick boy asks Renton if he'd like to sell his passport on the black market. With that, Renton places his passport in a train station locker for safekeeping. Seeking to rid himself of his freeloading friends, he puts them in a flat which he is responsible for, which they use their base to commit theft. When Renton's supervisor shows up to the flat, to the legitimate couple that may rent it, Sick Boy and Begbie are exposed to squatters and Renton presumably loses his job. However, they soon learn of Tommy's death from toxoplasmosis and travel back to Edinburgh for his funeral.
Yes. So, back home, they meet Spud, who has been released from prison. Sick Boy suggests a profitable but dangerous heroin transaction with Mickey Forrester, and Sick Boy needs Renton's help to supply half of the initial 4,000 pounds needed to purchase Mikey's supply. Renton injects a dose of heroin to test the purity. He promises himself a final hit on the bus back to London, but his strength and outlook on life keep him from becoming an addict again. He also mentions that he did it to annoy Begbie, who is nervous and twitchy. The four then sell the heroin to a dealer for 16,000 pounds, a tense but smooth transaction.
Yeah, that bus scene. Mm-hmm. Begbie is very, very, very nervous and lashes out at anything that moves. Mm-hmm. So, they go to a pub to celebrate the deal, discussing possible plans for the money. When Sick Boy goes to the men's room and Begbie gather on another round of drinks, Renton suggests that Spud should steal the money. Spud is too frightened of Begbie to consider it. Renton, however, believes that neither Sick Boy nor Begbie deserve the cash. Renton's opinion is the idea that sealed when Begbie attacks another patron who bumped him, causing him to spill the beers he just picked up. He glasses the man and begins to kick furiously while drawing his knife. When Spud tries to pull it off him, Begbie slashes Spud's hand. Begbie challenges anyone else to take him on when no one else is willing.
Well, then early in the next morning at their hotel room, as the others sleep, Renton quietly takes the money. Spud sees him leave, but does not tell the others. Renton slips out, retrieves his passport, and leaves behind a single 2,000-pound bundle in its place. When Begbie awakens and realizes Renton has stolen the money, he destroys the hotel room in a violent rage, which attracts the police, presumably leading to his arrest.
Renton walks through London and vows to live a stable, traditional life described at the beginning of the film. He does another round of choose life and so on and so forth. In the final scene, Spud finds the 2,000 pounds left from by Renton so he can start a new, clean life. And that's Trainspotting.
That is.
And I know that's a very, very short synopsis, but it is a short movie too. That's the other thing too. It's only like 90 minutes.
It's short, but it's a lot. There's not a bathroom moment in that movie. So
no. A lot of the stuff we didn't even talk about.
Yeah.
Because it just it was important to the plot or whatever, but it just didn't show up. For example, we talk about drug use. Mm-hmm. I mean, with the exception of Begbie, all the cast are either addicted at the beginning of the movie or become addicted to heroin, with the exception of Begbie and Diane.
Right.
Begbie doesn't do drugs, but he is a heavy drinker, smoker.
Right. Thank God he doesn't do coke, because I don't think anybody can handle a coke like Begbie.
The film takes a look at the darker side of drug use, like there is a light side of drug use. But,
right.
For example, these guys are perpetually unemployed. How can they afford to sustain a heroin addiction? How it rips apart families. Mm-hmm. How it can cause death to even the most innocent people and babies. Right. The boys do smoke weed and sometimes do speed. At the beginning of the movie, for example, Renton and Spud are sent for a job interview, and Renton gives Spud a bunch of speed. So he can
counteract the heroin so that he has actually a personality. And
that scene is absolutely hilarious too.
Yes.
It is one of the funny... See, it does have its funny moments. That's why it's a black comedy, because Spud, trying to do an interview, clearly tripping balls. Mm-hmm. The irony of this is while Renton, Spud, and Sick Boy get clean, Tommy's the one that actually dies of HIV complications.
Yeah.
Which, Tommy is such a
clean-cut kid in the beginning of it. It's really sad.
Yeah.
And then you've got the theme of crime and violence. Begbie, as we've discussed, is a violent sociopath. He almost murders an American tourist in a pub. He glasses, which means chunks one of those heavy, bar glasses, 2 people in the movie. One for no reason other than because, by throwing a pint of glass off a balcony, and the second for spilling his drink in a pub in London. Aren't you glad I didn't glass you?
You almost glassed the person at that kebab shop.
Okay.
Story time, everybody.
Okay. You don't take a girl from Louisiana to Luton after drinks and tell her, hey, this is Southern Fried Chicken. Now, I'm like, hey. No, it was not U.S. Southern Fried Chicken. It was UK Southern Fried Chicken. We do not put vinegar in our batter.
You should. It tastes better.
You are nasty, sir.
That's one of the Colonel's 8 herbs and spices.
No, it's not. Do not talk to me. Okay, so back to this. Renton, Sick Boy, and Spud all take place in petty crimes and breaking and entering. Eventually, Spud is convicted and sent to 6 months in prison, and then there's the big drug deal. So there's a lot of crime and violence going on in the movie.
And
we're not even talking about the neglect, the child neglect.
Child neglect.
Yeah.
No, I mean, when we talk about Sick Boy too, I mean, Sick Boy is a drug dealer, a pimp.
He's
not a violent sociopath, but he's definitely got sociopathic tendencies.
He's like a think Tony Soprano, but
less likable.
Yes. Yes.
He doesn't do well with ducks.
No. But there's also friendship.
Yeah, I mean,
the thing is that
they don't like each other.
No. They're situational friends.
Yeah, it's revealed in the book, and it's revealed in the prequel book that these guys have known each other for forever.
Yeah,
they were school friends.
They hang out because that's who they have to hang out with.
I mean, Renton genuinely cares for Spud and Tommy, who share the same affection to Renton to each other.
Right.
But they genuinely don't like Begbie, and they find it weird that they have a close friend that they generally despise or are afraid of. On the flip side of that, Begbie is so close to his friends that he believes them to be just as loyal to him as he is to them. Because that's one of Begbie's things in his psyche, is that his loyalty is number one.
Right.
He's one of those guys. He will always have your back if you were his friend. And if you don't have his back, then he's not your friend. And betrayal is the ultimate sin, which Renton pulls off at the end of the movie.
Yeah, buddy.
So kind of, him ripping Begbie off meant that he could never go home unless, Begbie went to prison, which we presume that he did. I mean, I mentioned Sick Boy shows some sociopathic tendency. He does care about his friends until their usefulness is done. Right. Which I never liked the character Sick Boy. I never did.
No. But then you've also got, the theme of morality. Renton sleeps with an underage girl he met in a club. He continues a relationship even after knowing this, partly due to lust and partly due to the fact that
he's being blackmailed.
Renton has justification to everything he does, good and bad. So in his mind, he has a reason.
And he doesn't shy away from his reasons either. That's what makes him a very, very good anti-hero. Right.
Begbie and Sick Boy have no morals.
Yeah.
Spud is a follower and will go along with whatever schemes are put in front of him by his friends. And Tommy, bless, becomes addicted to heroin and blames Renton for it, even though Tommy demanded that first hit.
Yeah, and that's the tragedy of the Tommy character. It was, he was the one making the demands.
Yeah.
And it says in the book that Renton didn't even give him a full hit. I mean, what I mean by that is there's different amounts of heroin that you use. Right. He had like a quarter of a hit and was so enamored by it that he carried on and so on and so forth.
Right. This brings us to, the stuff that happened behind the scenes and in preparation and whatnot. Starting off, Ian McGregor spent time in NA meetings, prepping Narcotics Anonymous, learning how to cook up heroin using powdered jello, thank God.
Yes.
He also, in prepping to play Renton, debated trying heroin just to see the effects firsthand. However, he wisely decided that was probably not a good idea.
I mean, if it was just a bunch of pot smokers, okay, fair enough. But we're talking heroin here.
Yes, yeah. So, to get the main casting character, Boyle forced all of the cast to watch A Clockwork Orange and The Hustler.
Clockwork Orange was at the time was a very, very hard get in the UK. Mm-hmm. After it was released in the cinema back in the 70s, copycat attacks happened.
Right.
Because people missed the point of the movie, I guess.
Yes.
And so Stanley Kubrick said that this was not to be released in the UK ever again, and that was kept until he died in 1999, and it was only then that Clockwork Orange was released in the UK.
Right.
If you've never seen Clockwork Orange, it is a very, very, very weird,
very violent movie. Yes.
Yes. So, great movie, but
yeah. So, Kelly MacDonald invited her family to the set one day for shooting, only to find out it was the day of her sex scene with Ewan McGregor. Oops. Ooh. So, the close-up of McGregor injecting himself in the movie was actually used with a prosthetic arm.
Yes. Let's see. Oh, this one. Okay. Mm-hmm. Bobby Carlyle, in his portrayal of Begbie, is based on Begby's own sexuality. Even Walsh has confirmed that Carlyle was absolutely 100% spot on in his portrayal. For it's now come out that Begbie is a closeted gay man who is ashamed of the fact, and his outbursts of violence are from fear of being outed. And in fact, in the sequel, in T2, he has some issues that he can only take care of with little blue pills.
Well, and also with that, when Begbie follows Renton to London, Renton is reading a book about Montgomery Clift, who we talked about
in the R.E.M.
episode. Yes, who himself was a closeted gay man. So,
to keep in the theme of the Clockwork Orange, the nightclub that they go to was actually decorated to look like the milk bar out of A Clockwork Orange.
Yes. Johnny Lee Miller is technically not Scottish, but kept his accent all throughout production and only dropped it at the rap party.
Yeah, a lot of people do that. The guy who played was it Brad Dourif? I can never pronounce his name right. Who played Grima Wormtongue in Lord of the Rings? Did an English accent for that, and only dropped it after the last cut of the reshoots. Did he drop it? So.
He's also the voice of Chucky.
Yes. Voice of Chucky.
So, but the video for Sabotage by the Beastie Boys, which is directed by Spike Jonze, was inspiration for the opening sequence.
Yes.
So if you can imagine the boys running through and jumping over stuff and whatnot, that's the same hectic energy that was in the very beginning of the movie.
Yes.
So, the opening scenes, five-a-side football team is the main cast. Were played against the
Carlton.
Yes, Carlton Athletic Club, who are addiction counselors.
Yes, so
there you go.
They were advisors on the movie and so on and so forth. So they got their cameo in as their team.
And as we discussed earlier, Kelly MacDonald and Shirley Henderson would later star as ghosts in the Harry Potter series. Kelly MacDonald would play the Grey Lady, the ghost of Ravenclaw, and Henderson would play Moaning Myrtle.
Now, this is a weird one because they're proud Scotsmen in this movie. But with the exception of Ewan Bremner, they weren't from Edinburgh. And that's the thing about Irving Welsh. He's very, very proud in his Edinburgh roots. As a lot of people who are from certain areas of the world are proud.
Right.
To be from the capital city, you're proud of that.
Right. But most of the film was actually shot in Glasgow simply because of just
logistics.
Yeah.
And Begbie.
The film has major references to the Beatles. Renton is being chased by the police, which is a reminiscent of the Hard Days and Nights scene.
Yep.
While watching the train leave the countryside, the four characters arrange themselves like the band on the Sgt. Pepper cover.
The cast do the Abbey Road walk in London when they're doing the drug deal.
Yes, and Mother Superior is a line of happiness and a warm gun, which is supposed to be about heroin.
Yes.
So, now if you notice, for somebody who was not a heroin addict, McGregor certainly looked the part. That was because he lost 28 pounds and shaved his head for the role.
Yes.
Renton originally had ginger hair in the novel.
So because Ewan McGregor doesnn have ginger hair, or didn't does he have ginger hair?
Yes, he has ginger. Yes. So there, when we're talking about the soundtrack, which is one of the best soundtracks ever, there are 2 versions released. The first consists of a combination of rock, trance, and dance. It would feature some of the biggest UK acts at the time: Blur, Pulp, Suede, Elastica, New Order, and Primal Scream.
Blondie were approached for the song Atomic, and they wanted no part of this movie because of the content and everything like that.
Right.
So up and coming band Sleeper, they did a cover of Atomic, which is really, really, really good. You also had Lust for Life by Iggy Pop, which the in the book is displayed that the guys are huge fans of Iggy Pop and huge fans of David Bowie. But Bowie, if they'd used Bowie songs in the soundtrack, it would have cost 3 times the budget for music.
Right.
So that song was replaced by a New Order track called Temptation.
Okay, and then the funniest part.
Yes.
Okay, so Oasis were asked to contribute a song to the soundtrack, but turned it down as they all thought the film was about actual train spotting. So let that sink in for just a second.
Now,
which is a decision that Noel now regrets.
Well, the biggest band in the UK not being part of the biggest soundtrack of the biggest UK movie of the 90s, you know, it kind of seems weird, but what song would they have used and which part of the movie would it have gone in?
I have no idea.
Because Oasis's first 2 albums were known as being, I don't want to say happy, but optimistic.
Right.
And this is a very, very dark and gritty movie. Like, even Pulp, the song that they used, Mile End, if you actually listen to the lyrics, is talking about squatting in a London tower block.
Yeah.
And the song Blur used was an instrumental.
Yeah.
You know, I can't see... I mean, the only 2 songs that they possibly could have used were Cigarettes and Alcohol or Bring It On Down.
Columbia.
Maybe Columbia. But they're not going to throw Wonderwall in on this. You know?
No. I don't know. Shaker Maker. I could see Shaker Maker.
Maybe it just a lot of it wouldn't have fit. Is I guess what I'm saying. And look, I'm you know me. I'm a big Oasis fan.
Oh yeah.
And you know they deserve their nomination to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame this year.
Absolutely.
They're not going to get in, but they deserve the nomination at least.
The second soundtrack featured a bunch of songs that were featured in the movie but didn't make the first album cut.
So you've got a 12 or 13 track album of songs that did make the cut. That's how much that's how much Irving Welsh wrote music into his psyche.
Right.
This is, you know, a lot of newer authors have done that, but Irving Welsh definitely, you know, a lot of Bowie, a lot of dance, a lot of trance. I mean, basically what Irving Welsh could have picked the soundtrack himself, and it would not have been that much different to what the producers picked.
And all in all, this is considered one of the finest movie soundtracks of all time.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's just as an album as itself, you know. It's, you know, it's a very, very good compilation. It would have been a very, very good Now That's What I Call Music.
All right, so movie time rating. What do you rate it, babe?
Oh, 11. 11 out of 10.
Out of 10? Yeah.
Out of 10, this scores an 11. It has to. I mean...
I'm going to put it as a 9.
Okay.
There are certain parts that are hard for me to watch.
I understand.
It's a very visually striking movie. Like the scene where he's sinking through the carpet, that cinematically is beautiful. It's horrible, but it's beautiful to watch.
Yeah.
But there are several scenes that it's hard for me to watch, and
that's understandable.
Yeah. So Cinematically, it's like a 30 out of 10. But,
oh yeah, this is not a film. This is a piece of cinema.
Yeah,
and
but I gotta put it at 9. So,
and I understand that. I put it as an 11, and I think it's those hard parts of the movie that make it that.
Right.
Because yes, we can go all the frivolity of unemployed heroin addicts fighting their way through life, but then you got the tragedy of Tommy, tragedy of Baby Dawn, the way that it accurately showed the highs and the lows of addiction.
Right.
I mean, this is one of my favorite movies of all time, if not my favorite movie of all time.
Oh, I know.
The cast is spot on. Mm-hmm. When I read the book now, I read the book in their voices.
In their voices, yeah.
Yeah, the soundtrack is great. The cinematography is great. This film is just great. Now, does it leave a lot of elements out of the book? Yes, but I don't think it
has to. Yeah,
I don't think you needed the story of Spud's racist grandma.
No,
in this, no. It wouldn't have done anything to.
No,
wouldn't have done anything. All Renton's relationship with Kelly,
right?
It would have, you just given him Diane on a plate and
let him take
it. So, what did you think of? You said 9 and.
Yeah, no, it's a beautiful movie. It really is. There's just parts, like I said, that are hard to watch for me, especially as I've gotten older. But I mean, it's really good. Okay. It really is good. But I think that's what defines a good movie is it makes you feel things one way or the other. So the fact that it's hard for me to watch shows how good of a movie that it is.
Okay. All right. So this launched the worldwide careers of Robert Carlyle and Ewan McGregor. Mm-hmm. I mean, Carlyle went on to become a Bond villain.
Yes.
And McGregor became Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Or Jesus in some households.
I'll check your Meemaw's house. If she's got Ewan McGregor up there, change it to another white man pretending to be Jesus. And I mean, because this film was a smash hit, other movies tried to get in on the themes and whatnot. Mm-hmm. Two of the most infamous are Human Traffic, which was shot in a similar style to Trainspotting.
Yeah.
And Twin Town. Human Traffic was basically describing a night out on the sesh, for lack of a better term.
Okay.
And the subculture that surrounded it. It had, I don't want to say skits, but there was definitely some weird out of the box things happening.
Right.
This, however, led to the falling out of Danny Boyle and Ewan McGregor.
Really?
Because of The Beach.
Okay.
Leonardo DiCaprio is the star of The Beach.
Right.
He wasn't supposed to be. That's supposed to go to Ewan McGregor. Danny Boyle offered him the role, and the studio went with DiCaprio instead.
Oh.
And because Boyle didn't put up much of a fight, because DiCaprio was coming off Titanic,
right,
and was seen as the biggest star at the time,
right,
Ewan McGregor basically said, "Fuck you, I'm going home."
Deuces.
Which Ewan McGregor then made up for by doing Star Wars.
Yes. And DiCaprio just went forward by doing.
DiCaprio wouldn't watch this movie because it's over 25 years old.
I was going to say, yeah. Irvine Welsh would write a follow-up book, Porno, and a prequel, The Skag Boys. Porno would be adapted into T2, Trainspotting, which was released in 2017.
I haven't finished that movie yet. I've seen up to the same point 6 times. And then something happens and I get distracted. One time I tried to watch it on a flight. And that didn't go down well either. Because, I was going to Florida. And...
Yeah. So, but one thing that... one of the biggest parts of the legacy of Trainspotting is that it gave a renewed interest in British cinema outside of James Bond movies.
Yeah, because by 96, James Bond was passé.
Yeah, so...
It was dated.
Yeah, because around that era, if you weren't in Bond, this is pre-Potter... So it was a lot of indie movies and a lot of smaller movies. And so this really shone a light on what British cinema could do.
Yeah, and it was more than just Rowan Atkinson and because he was a big star.
It was more than Monty Python, James Bond, or Mr. Bean, which is pretty much what it was at the time.
But it showed that we had a great bunch of actors in the UK.
Yes.
I mean, the Harry Potter series came not long after this, 5 years later?
Yeah, and
it showed a who's who of the British acting scene.
Yes, is there a major British actor at the time who didn't do something in Potter?
The only one that I could say was left out of the movies, and that was Rick Mayall. Because he played Peeves the Poltergeist, and they decided that he wasn't needed in the movies. But that was spot on casting.
Yes. Anybody could play Peeves. It was Rick Mayall.
I think it was written specifically for him in the books, just in case, because some authors get the idea of adapting their movies, adapting their books, and Rick Mayall was probably written in mind for that character.
Probably. But, so that, ladies and gentlemen, is Trainspotting.
Highly uncomfortable, very colourful.
Yes.
Well acted.
Yes.
Great story.
Mm-hmm.
Not a linear story either, which
No.
is, but it all kind of threads together and winds up in a nice little bow at the end of it.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think of this movie? Tell us. We have social media pages on Facebook and Instagram, and we have one on the old Twitter. I saw a thread today that said the new Twitter is worse than the old Twitter, and I'm like, duh.
Right.
Yeah. So. But that's it for this movie. If you like this movie, let us know. If you don't like this movie, tell us why you didn't like it. And trust me, if the reasons are valid, I'll give you valid reasons. I like hearing a valid reason as to why something isn't good. I mean, you've given me some reason why it's not a 9 out of 10 film.
Right.
Tell us on our social media pages. That's what they're there for. Sarah, thank you for coming on board.
You are most welcome, dear. Thank you for having me.
You've done so many weeks of this. It's time to give you some time off from here.
Ooh.
Yes.
Yay.
You will be back in a while.
Okay.
I'm going to tell you how long it's going to be before we see you again. You will have done 7 episodes in a row. But I think it's time we had other voices.
Yes. It's not necessarily the John and Sarah show.
No, but you will be back for our 100th episode spectacular.
Woohoo!
And what's that going to involve?
You tell me.
It's going to involve talking about the patron saint of the podcast, whole second album.
Yeah.
As I humorously wrote it down, this is it. It's not that. It's Live Through This.
Yes. Yes.
But that's going to be in a few weeks' time. We're currently on episode 93, so we've got a little bit of time to get ready for that one.
It's their second full length.
That's
album.
what I said. The second album.
Said, I know they had an EP in there, but never.
Well,
mind.
that's not an album. That's an extended play.
Okay.
It's not a long play.
Semantics, my love. But we'll see you all then, or we'll holler at y'all later.
Yeah, Sarah will holler at y'all later. I will holler at you here in a couple of minutes. And we'll be right back. Sarah, thanks for being here. It's been awesome.
You're most welcome. Bye.
My sincere thank you to Sarah once again for taking the time out of her very, very busy day to take the time to talk to us. I know that some elements of this movie are not some of the most comfortable topics to talk about, and I'm just glad that she was in there with me. I'm glad that she enjoys the movie as much as I do, or almost as much as I do, and can identify the problems that they have with it. So once again, thank you for coming on, Sarah. I really, really do appreciate you. Next week, I'm flying solo as we talk about a game that launched a franchise, and a very, very good franchise indeed, except for maybe one game, and even then that's only because the expectations of it were so low they didn't even clear the bar. But we're talking about Fallout. Yes, I love the Fallout series. I've played every Fallout game except for the one that we're talking about. I've played maybe 10 minutes of it, and it's a very, very good game, and I'd like to play more of it. I'm going to learn how to play it. And because, like I said, I don't want to be one of those guys who doesn't play some of the older games of a series just because they're older. The only exception I make to that is Morrowind. I never could get into Morrowind. I tried, but I did manage to play Elder Scrolls 4 and Elder Scrolls 5, and I did play a little bit of Elder Scrolls 2 too, so yes. But with Fallout, the first two games are similar. Not identical, but similar. So I'm going to go ahead and give Fallout 1 a chance in my repertoire of rotation of games. Next week, also, we will give an announcement on our Dead Streamer series and what we've got coming up for this summer. Because we are getting into the nitty-gritty. Summer's just around the corner. And yeah, that whole thing, we were going to do some more Dead Streamer series, but that got postponed because of the Dog Eat My Homework series. That either will finish today or will finish next week. I'm hoping that we're done by now. I'm still a fair few weeks out, but as of right now, I'm recording this on March 23rd. So I've got a few more weeks of catch up to get to. So I don't know if we're going to be done or not, but I know we're going to be close to the end by the time this comes out. This will be the last plug of it, but we got one more episode next week. Go ahead and watch it, and then come listen to me talk about Fallout. Yes. And that's been the problem with the Dead Streamer series. We've been holding back until we had something to play, and now we've got something to play, so it's going to be a lot of fun. Plus, in the fall, I'll do a traditional series of the 90s Gamer, just so, we can keep going. So that's going to be a lot of fun also. And that is it. So if you like what you hear, go check out becausemaybepodcast.com. That's your final archive of every episode we've ever done ever. Something particularly fancy, go ahead and listen to it. We've got 10 seasons of the 90s podcast, and we've got 11 seasons of the 90s Gamer. Plus we've got 2 extra supplemental podcasts in Extra and Right Here, Right Now. Right Here, Right Now doesn't go as often as it should, but I'm working on that. Also, we have Dead Streamer set up on there, as well as the 90s Gamer. That's where all of our archives, when I say everything we've ever done ever, I mean everything that we've ever done ever is on the becausemaybepodcast.com. Go check it out. Go check out Facebook, Instagram, and formerly Twitter. I'm not going to call it X, because that's just dumb. It's a dumb name for a dumb place. And it's gotten significantly dumber as I'm talking about it. But go check out Because We Network there. That's where you find the latest news and what's happenings. And if you listen to this on somewhere where you don't usually listen to podcasts, we are on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Podchaser, Pandora, YouTube, Spotify, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, Podbean, or Amazon Music, okay? And that's it. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you very much for taking the time out of your day to listen to us. Be healthy, be kind, be good to people, and I'll see you next week. Take it easy, everybody. Bye.